Welcome. This is TarHeel247, a UNC basketball podcast. Make sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Want to welcome in 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting, Adam Finkelstein. Takeaways from Friday's win over Kansas. Well, first of all, let's bring him in. How are you doing? How's the college season going? How's everything going?
I'm good, man. My team's healthy, so I'm. How you doing?
I'm a little confused as to what happened on Sunday. That's the first thing we're going to discuss.
Okay.
Captain Trimble suffers a broken bone in his left forearm. Surgery. We don't know the timetable. Coach Davis said he expects him back. This is devastating for my Tar Heels because I don't think we have anyone else that can attack and get into the lane. Can you kind of expand on that? What do you
No,
think
I think devastating is a fair word. I think primary initiator, best on-ball defender. Would you agree with that?
For sure, for sure.
Emotional leader of the team, someone who kind of, persevered through the adversity of last year, was like the beacon of hope at times last year. And now really was going to be just the focal point, not just from like a volume standpoint and an important standpoint on both ends of the floor, but just in terms of being the emotional leader. So I think it's really a huge hit, and I also think it's going to be a referendum on this roster construction plan, right? Because there was a lot of talk about that going into the season, about the way they were taking this front office approach, the amount of resources they were allocating. Well, roster construction 101 is make sure you have enough primary ball handlers on your roster. So we're gonna find out real quick if they do or not.
Yeah, I just wonder kind of who plugs into that spot, and just the downhill aggression. I'm just thinking like there's not guys that can get in there and just mix it up. And even in the Kansas game, I don't know what you saw, but yes, Peterson had a good game, but it wasn't easy, right? Like
no,
he had to work for those points, and he had to really, Seth kind of blanketed him. I mean, it's the number one pick. You only can do so much, but I'm just I can't. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I thought Peterson, he had 22. I think it was 8 of 12 from the floor, but his shot making, I didn't think. I actually did like a little clip on this on Saturday because he was guarded really, really well, and the shot making he had to produce to come up with that 22 points was really impressive. I didn't think Peterson got enough credit, and by extension, Trimble's defense got enough credit. I will say this, though. I think Derek Dixon is a guy who's stylistically different, but capable of coming in and shouldering more responsibility. How they break down a defense, how they get their paint touches, that's going to have to evolve. But I do think Dixon can play more minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely going to look different with Dixon and Luka kind of coming in, being the fillers. So, like I mentioned, in the big one over Kansas, one of early, it's crazy Kansas had never played in Chapel Hill. What were your biggest takeaways from that game?
Well, I thought that, number one, it was like, that night it was like Carolina's back, right? All the talk. And there was, let's call a spade a spade. There was a lot of talk this offseason, about coach, about GMs, about the way they were building the roster. There were a lot of eyeballs around Carolina, but they really responded. And the front court looked great. I thought that there was, and I know we're going to get into this more, but I thought that players and coaches both looked comfortable with the style of play. Like the sets seemed to me that Caleb and Vassar were both had early chemistry together. I thought Hubert Davis was comfortable coaching that style, coaching with bigger players on the floor. I thought that the sets and everything, there was a level of organization and continuity that wasn't always there last year. So everything was going great. And then 24 hours later, the injury is just, takes all the wind out of the sails. So it was really some two extremes this weekend.
Yeah, I found myself watching the game and smiling because, it looked kind of like a competent Carolina team. The bigs were playing. The joy was there. And unfortunately with the Seth thing, it kind of did take the wind out of the sails. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. I'm hoping that the kids step up, man, and can fill in. And the big situation was great. You've got, Caleb Wilson. Let's we'll start with him since it's a UNC pod. 24.7 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals. Looked every bit the part. What did you think about his performance?
Yeah, he's been great. And even going back into the preseason, I think now this is 4 straight games with 20 plus points. And to be honest with you, we weren't expecting that. And to put it in perspective, this is a kid who was a top 10 recruit throughout high school. It's not just that he finished in the top 10, it's that he debuted in the top 10 and then he never left it. And that is exceptionally hard to do. I want to say he's one of only 4 players in the class to do that. It was just him, and don't necessarily quote me on this. I would have to go back and check to see if Michael was one of these guys too. But even Koa didn't do it, and I mean, technically, I guess AJ didn't because he had to reclass up, so he may have been just one of 3, along with Peterson and Boozer. So like we knew he was going to be really, really good. I thought he was the most versatile defensive prospect in that class in terms of somebody who could come in, be switchable, guard multiple positions, be a playmaker. That stuff is all, checked out. I thought his athleticism, and I don't just mean leaping ability. I mean like court coverage and mobility at his size, along with the leaping ability, like all those things. Not only contributed to his defense, but also we're going to allow him to impact the game in other areas. All that stuff just as good as we expected, but it's been the offense that's been even better. I think like he's not a 3-point shooter, still not a 3-point shooter. In fact, I did a reel on this on Saturday too. It was the mid-range touch. Like number one, I'm almost surprised he's getting as many mid-range looks as he is, because those are the types of shots that a lot of coaches are discouraging this day and age. But he's got real mid-range touch, and we saw it in that Kansas game. And then the passing has been really good too. Again, I think it comes within the context of playing within those high-low actions and having that chemistry with Vassar. But the timing, just the ability to make timely, simple, but solid reads with the basketball has been really apparent. And I think that's been an area that was those 3 things I think are the areas that I pinpointed: the chemistry with the other big and in the high-low system, the passing and the mid-range touch. Those 3 reasons are why offensively he's even better than expected.
Yeah, I kind of look at it. It's fun to play with. Look, like he wants to keep his guys involved. There's a joy about his game that when his teammates are successful, the mid range. Coach Davis told me at media day, he's like, "Hey, look, the mid range is legit." I didn't know what that meant per se, but I think he has a nice enough stroke. I think from a pro prospect, like I think that's going to just come with time, because the way that, at least when I left the NBA 4 years ago, everyone shoots threes, everyone works on it. All the drills are based on shooting threes. So I think that'll come. I mean, I told someone, I don't know how you feel about this. Seth being hurt kind of kills it, but if he was to keep on this trajectory, right, and Carolina stays top 10, 15, it's like I was like he could be a top 3. I mean, he's close, but
Top
top 3
what?
bona fide lock, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, top 3 means you got to knock out Bonza,
Bonza,
Boozer, or
Peterson.
DP Peterson.
Yep.
So that's and what I've learned over the years is like the early draft projections, when we start putting a number on it, get tough. Like I always cite Trevor Keels. Remember Trevor Keels? After 2 games at Duke, he was the number 7 pick in the draft, and it's like, hold on, he didn't. So like even the kid from Virginia Tech, he was up here in Connecticut where I'm from, and he had 30 the other night, and everybody's going crazy. And it's like, hey, did you see his first game? Like there's, like let's let this play out. The draft isn't for 8 months. I do think Caleb has, came in with a chance to be a one and done lottery pick based on where he was ranked. He's been even better than expected. So I think he's put himself in like a great spot to start the season. To your point, though, I too am concerned about what it looks like without Trimble.
Yeah, I play Harrison Barnes. He was projected number 1. Now he dropped to a measly 7th. Oh my God! But I remember that time where he was projected, and he kind of was just, everyone loved him, but he ended up being a 7th pick, which he wasn't too happy about. But he's fine 14 years later. So not
he's
that
doing all right.
Yeah, he's doing all right, right? So follow up on that, another big name, obviously DP, number 1 rated player in the class 2025, widely considered the top prospect, 22, 3 and 3, 2 steals and a block, thoughts on his game? I love his game, by the way. I mean, he's a smooth criminal.
Yeah, so when we made him number one in the country right after the McDonald's game last year, and at the time we were the only national outlet to do so, and I think I think we finished as the only national outlet to do so. Although I think there may have been one that went back and switched it after the fact, but I digress. The So for me, it was just the fact his rate of escalation. Like he got better with each step along the way. And we've seen that again, even from like last spring when he won MVP of the McDonald's game, which I know was a motivation source for Caleb.
Yeah, I saw that.
to this fall, like his conditioning was good. There was no issues with it. Now it's great, and it's added an extra level of pace to it. But this is a guy who, at 6'5", 6'6", with a 6'10" wingspan, you can put the ball in his hand and he can create offense for himself and others at multiple levels. And just to reiterate what we said earlier, I thought Seth Trimble did a great job of defending him. And if you go back and look at the 8 shots he made in that Carolina game, I mean, it was tough pull-ups. Yeah. There was a tough lefty runner in there. There was a 3 that he made off a bad pass. There was a 3 that he made off a handoff. And so I want to say it was just, I think it was like the first bucket of the game where he got the steal and he had, he showed his speed there, but that was his only easy bucket of the whole night. And you look at the stat line at the end of the game and he's 8 for 12 with 22 points. And you think, oh, he probably just played in the flow. No. He made tough shots and had to be opportunistic because, he's got to create almost everything over there. So, he's as good as advertised, I think.
Yeah, and as I was watching him, I thought to myself, like, wow, like when he gets to the next level and has like guys around him, I think he's going to be even better because you can see he has the pocket, he has the vision, the pocket. He made a few nice passes. So I was watching the game because I literally told myself, I said, look, man, if we don't blanket this kid, I mean, and he kept him in the game. And when he went out, Kansas fell off the cliff. So
yeah.
The foul trouble hurt him a little bit as well. I mean, I think so. He's probably going to stay number one for now, I'm assuming.
He's number one on my board, but again, I think there's so much time. And AJ's been good. Cam had it's funny. Everybody said Cam had a bad game. He had 15 and 13. He didn't have a great, and that's what makes Cam special. Even when he doesn't have a good shooting night, he still drives winning. Remember, Cam Boozer, I want to get this one. I don't mean to talk about a Duke kid.
You're good. You're good.
Cam Boozer's the most successful high school player I have seen in recent memory. And there's been talk about is Koa Pete the best? No. It's not even close. Not even close. Cam Boozer won 4 Florida state championships. And I think Koa did that too in Arizona. Cam won a gold medal every time he played USA basketball. I think Koa did that too. They were teammates, I think, on most of those teams. The difference is that Cam won every single Nike EYB championship, E15, E16, and then the Peach Jam. And then he took Columbus High School and won a national championship as a senior. That's unheard of stuff. Koa's great, but he didn't do that. So let's be clear. So Cam's history of winning is unprecedented in recent history.
And the difference between Cam and even a guy like Koa, Koa came in that game, not that much pressure. I mean, yeah, he did, but I mean, Cam is, the weight of the world, right? And so I think Coach K actually came up and was like, look, everybody's got to relax. He had 15 and 13, and everyone's jumping off the roof, he didn't even, so I'm excited to see that matchup between him and Caleb. That's going to be an all-time kind of thing. So I wonder with that. How do you think? Let's get into it. How do you think that matchup would go? I know has that happened on the circuit? I know you scout and seen that.
So they were teammates.
Okay.
They won an EYBL championship together, and Caleb joined that Knight Riders team late, and that was a team that also had Dante Allen at Miami and Alex Lloyd at Florida, and of course Caden Boozer. So they were loaded, but it was a team in which Caleb coming up the ranks was a guy who struggled a little bit when he tried to be the alpha offensively. And when he joined that Knight Riders team and he was able to play a little bit more like Robin than Batman, and then change the game on the defensive end of the floor and get your 15 and whatever, but don't feel like you need to go out and get 25. That's when Caleb really flourished. I mean, this is going back 15 months or so now, Peach Jam of 2024 when they won that together. So, when Caleb and Cam go head to head, I think what you will see is Caleb really try and utilize the speed. He's a twitchier athlete, and he covers the court, and he's quicker than Cam is. Cam's stronger. Cam's going to try and go right through Caleb's chest. And then it's going to be interesting to see how John Shire and Hubert Davis will scheme to put those guys in positions to be successful. And again, if Seth Trimble is on the floor, that has a lot to do with it. But I've really liked Hubert Davis's scheme so far with these bigs. I think it's been fun to watch, and it's been a really good fit.
Yeah, I think you got to get Caleb in space and let him play. If you can kind of manufacture that, he's going to be pretty good. So also, folks at home, if you like what you're listening to, make sure to check out TarHeel247.com. We've got a ton of great hoops and football content on the site. Check it out. Tell all your Tar Heel friends too. That's TarHeel247.com. Moving on, we got the star freshmen. Let's dig a little deeper. Aside from those two, are there any other players on Carolina's roster that you see potentially as players at the next level?
Yeah, the big fella's been great. Am I pronouncing his name right? Vasar? I don't know. Yeah, I'm notoriously bad with that. I know he can play. And I think, again, it's been a great fit. I think he has made Caleb look good. Again, their chemistry in the high-low action. He was so efficient last year at Arizona. I think that was that's a great credit to the scouting process that North Carolina went through to get the big. I think when you look at NBA rosters and you kind of compare that to the draft boards, I think the thing that doesn't get enough weight in the draft process, at least from the media point of view, is size. Yep. Like Ryan Kalkbrenner going out there and exceeding everybody's expectations in Charlotte. So these huge centers who have size that translates to the NBA level and is a game changer at the NBA level, we've seen that hit, I think, a little bit more than people in the draft media space may account for. And so I do think that he's going to be someone long-term that NBA scouts are going to be intrigued by. The efficiency, the ability to, be that huge drop coverage presence. That's a niche in the NBA, that Walker Kessler, Ryan Kalkbrenner type guy, the highly efficient rim finisher, someone who can pass an offensive rebound. Like, those are all characteristics that translate to an NBA game. So I do think he's a name. I think Seth Trimble's a name too. We started to see some momentum for him last year. The shot is obviously, the swing skill there that people want to see. But I think this year, showing that he had, the ability to play with the ball in his hands, which is what he did in high school. Last year, he sacrificed and moved off the ball, but we know he can defend. We know he can get paint touches. We were seeing that he could run a team. If he can make open spot up threes, he's an NBA player too. So I think those are the two most glaring ones. But as the years goes on, and maybe as this year goes on, there will be others that emerge.
Yeah, Visar, I saw he only played over 25 minutes 6 times last year, and you actually saw the growth of him like during the game. I thought at halftime, I don't know what the message was, but my message would have been like, listen, just because it's a Carolina on your chest doesn't mean that you're going to go and win games. And they just came out with a different mindset. Like, we got to take it. They were missing him early. He wasn't being aggressive. So whatever I don't know what the NIL say. Hey, look, we're paying you the big bucks to go get us the victory. I don't know what they said, but I think that he's going to he played 38 minutes because I think that's the only thing that concerns about this team more so is the drop off. The center drop off he's going to have to play a lot of minutes this year. So hopefully he holds up, but so far so good.
I mean, that's my issue, right? With the roster construction. I love the first 5, but you have to have depth at the ends of your rotation. I don't care what level of college basketball you were playing at. You need to have depth at the front line, and you need to have depth of ball handlers. There's a lot of emphasis on big wings who can be switchable and give you versatility in the middle of the lineup. But if you can't get the ball over half court or you're being pressured out of your offense or you can't compete on the glass, it gets really, really hard. And especially now with the amount of scholarships you have available, it is an absolute requisite for any program that you have depth at the center position and you have depth in terms of your ball handlers.
Yeah, I don't want to go off the rails, but we saw Alabama. What you got when you got a couple guard, 2 3 guards that can anything is possible.
Yeah, LeBaron was pretty special on Saturday. Yeah.
Yep. So Tar Heels, if they do kind of get Trimble back at some point later this season, hopefully before things go off the rails, I'm so intrigued how they're going to kind of hold it together. What do you think the ceiling is for this team after seeing them this weekend?
You know, I think that is there was a lot of justifiable enthusiasm after that Kansas game, but I think the depth is the key variable here
Yeah.
because we don't yet know how much margin for error they have. We just talked about depth at the center position, the point guard position. I think they made nice adds. I like Powell. I like some of the other guys in the middle of the lineup that they have. But at the end of the day, to really advance late into March and into April, you have to have that roughly 8-man rotation you can rely on, but sometimes 9 and 10 become really important if 1 or 2 of those first 8 goes down. And that, I think, is my big question for Carolina. So if everybody's healthy, I think there is reason to be very enthusiastic about what this year could look like. Because as I said, I love the bigs. I think this is a roster that Hubert Davis is comfortable with. And I think that's something that we can't overemphasize because the players have to fit the way the coach wants to run the team, and I think this year they do. But I do worry a little bit about the depth if injuries start to become a factor.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last 3 or 4 teams that have won, the depth has. I mean, I don't want to call it lucky depth because a lot of those teams had guys that they didn't think were going to necessarily come on. And they came on late. I mean, even Florida last year, off the bench. The year before, UConn, obviously, right, that depth. So I'm interested to see who steps up, and especially in the center spot. I don't think you could play VSAR 38 minutes a night. Obviously, not going to have Kansas every night, so we can pick and choose. But we'll see.
What's the common denominator from, like you mentioned, Florida, UConn, those last 3 national championship teams? Front court depth is the common denominator of all 3 of those teams. Florida had 4 starting caliber bigs. The first year UConn won a national championship, Donovan Clingan came off the bench. Front court depth when you're trying to build a national championship program, I think is a requisite these days.
For sure. So now Hubert, back in his 5th season as a head coach, thoughts on the overall job that he's done to this point in tenure, and how would you assess kind of the overall health of this Carolina program in this new era where that blue on the chest does not mean anything? You got to have the funds, and you got to have your finances together before you can do anything.
Yeah, listen, I am thankfully not in the business about speculating about coaches' job security, but we would be disingenuous to say that those whispers aren't out there, right? Coming into the season, everybody knew this was a big year. There was a lot of people talking about it, a lot of investment being made, not just in the roster, but in the depth of the front office itself. I mean, that Carolina was behind the scenes, an example that people in the industry were talking about in terms of the amount of resources being used, not on players, but on scouting. So there's a serious investment here. And, everybody knew this was a big season. Hubert Davis, to me, has always been a class act. He's always been a gentleman. But when you coach at one of the very few legitimate blue bloods in the country, there's a really, really, really high bar. And it's not and there's a frequency to it that has to be hit. And I think he understands that. I think everybody who coaches at those schools understand it. So you either meet that standard or you're going to start to hear those whispers pretty soon. And so I'm rooting for him. Like I said, been a class act. I didn't overlap with him too much, but my time at ESPN, he was at ESPN. I've never met anybody who said a bad word about him, just a person of really high integrity. But like I said, it would be disingenuous to say that nobody's talking about his job security. I think everybody, if they're being candid, knows that this is a big season.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize at home the tangled web of just Carolina, the athletics basketball department, from the top to the bottom. Jim Tanner, who's a GM, that's my agent. So I want him to be successful.
Wait, the GM's your agent?
That was my agent when I was playing.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, he went to Carolina. I don't know if you know, he went to Carolina, obviously, and
right.
So he was my agent. So I talked to him all the time, and it's high pressure. I'll tell you, it's high stress. It's high stress
Yeah.
over there right now. So it's so many other than Hubert. Like Hubert's going to be fine, right? Jim Tanner's going to be fine. But it's the develop player ops, it's the managers, it's the media. These are people that have been in the program for 30 years. So I always try to think like I want Hubert to be successful for everyone around the program.
So if I could, I'll
Yeah.
share this story with you.
Mhm.
I got hired to be a Division I assistant when I was 24 years old. At
Mhm.
the end of that season, we won Coach of the Year. We finished third in the conference. We got fired 2 weeks after winning Coach of the Year when we finished third in the conference.
Mhm.
And I remember my boss at the time, I'm 25 at this point at the end of the
Mhm.
season. And my boss comes in and he says, the head coach is always fine. It's not
Mhm.
like the head coach always gets another job, but it's the assistant coaches, it's the dobos, it's the managers. In this day and
Yep.
age, it's the scouts. And the other thing that people don't talk about, it's those people's families at home.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
like, the media talks about this, like, is Hubert Davis getting
Mhm.
fired? And I get it. Like, that's what Hubert Davis signed up for when you coach at one of these blue bloods. But the collateral damage of that, and no one's asking for sympathy, but
Yep.
everyone on his staff and everyone whose family it is. So that's why, like, I just struggle to be one of these people who gets up there and say, fire this person, even when, you know, from a media perspective, the people who do that, they're doing it to get the likes and the clicks and the followers, because that is clickbait. But you know, having been on the other side of it, I know it can be really, really hard.
Yeah, it just goes so deep because especially Carolina, like even someone like no one talks about Jonas, who is literally the strength coach. He is the guy behind the scenes, one of the best. NBA tries to hire him all the time. Coach Williams had to do what he had to do to keep him. Guys like that, been there for 20, 25 years or 20 years, right? Then and yeah, sure, but like he's built his life, his family in Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that Coach Davis figures it out and he's there for a long time. So moving on, we got Radford on Tuesday night. Anyone on Radford we need to be worried about? Is there anybody on that team?
No.
No, okay. That's
not that
it's,
that I'm aware of.
Hey,
Not
look, I had to ask. I got to ask.
Yeah, nobody on my draft board. What I will tell you is, in this era of NIL, there are less mid-major sleepers to start the season than there were three or so years ago, because the vast majority of people transfer up because there's just opportunities to make more money. So that's not to say guys won't emerge, but there is a clear kind of cluster of talent in those, let's call it Power Five right now.
Yeah, I actually, I one of my best friends is an NIL agent. I was talking to him last night over dinner, and he was like, the formula is kind of now freshmen are kind of going a little bit below maybe where they should
Yes.
be and trying to play their way up. I mean, there's a lot of freshmen averaging 15, 16, 18 at these smaller schools trying to get up, because now these smaller schools are just going to the mid majors and grabbing kids. So that's an interesting trend. I don't know if you saw that or
no. There's more.
Yeah.
So this year's recruiting class, the class of 2026, has more nationally ranked prospects, particularly in the backcourt, committed to mid-major schools than we've seen in recent history. And there's pretty clear reasoning for that. Number one, in a lot of cases, they're actually getting more money because of the uncertainty of rev share and stuff like that. The guys that are ranked between, let's say, 90 and 150, a lot of these highest level schools have been reluctant to offer top dollar for. And then you have a mid-major school who can come in and make what is a relatively aggressive offer, and so give you some guaranteed money. Beyond that, there's the long-term play, the long-term valuation of, you go to a mid-major school. If you're getting what is at that level a significant revenue commitment, it's also going to come with a corresponding amount of minutes, right? No mid-major school is going to pay a bunch for a freshman and then not play you, right? So you're going to get on the floor, you're going to get a chance to put up numbers. And the trend is very clear. If you're a mid-major player who puts up numbers, you have a big market to transfer up and then get an even higher payday. So you look at it from that standpoint, and just from an earning, like you talked about being an agent. If I'm an agent and I'm advising a kid who's somewhere between 75 and 150 or something like that, I'm taking the immediate hit to get the money of a mid-major school. I'm going and having every opportunity to put up numbers, and then I'm probably giving a lot of consideration to transferring up if maximizing my revenue is my primary objective. I think that's a really good pathway, and we're seeing that play out this year.
Yeah, it's something interesting with the revenue share, and I've heard that there's little loopholes where you can pay kids in the front end in high school now, with the new rev share to come on the back end. And I don't know the ethics behind that, but it's coming, folks. So just remember I said that.
There's always loopholes, and the ethics are always debatable.
For sure. So you have your own show coming back to CBS Sports Network starting Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. What can viewers expect from that?
Well, you can expect me to try and get my darn producer back. That's what you can expect. No, I will say this is that first of all, what you have is a 60-minute show that basically is a reflection of what we do every week, which is tracking basketball prospects from the recruiting process up through the early years of the NBA. So this week it's signing week. There's going to be a lot of recruiting talk. There's also going to be great college basketball talk that'll be differentiated from other stuff on the CBS network because we're going to get into the weeds. I don't want to call it like basketball nerdum, but it'll be more. Ideally, there will be a level of depth to the analysis that is different from what you can find elsewhere. And then we're also going to talk some NBA draft and by extension get into following those guys first couple of years in the NBA. So it's a full hour long show. We've got 5 segments each week, and we're going to try and check those boxes: the recruiting, college basketball, NBA draft, and maybe even some NBA young guys, and one stop shopping. It's kind of like the reflection of the stuff that I do every day.
I'd imagine with all the player moving, the NIL transfer, you have the giant board with all the pins and the red lines and dots going everywhere, man. Because I can't imagine.
I've always wanted one of those. I really have. But this is what I tell people. People say, like, how do you follow all that? And it's like a lot of it is just organic. The players who are in their third year in the NBA, lots of times I started watching them when they were freshmen or sophomores in high school. So you have a familiarity not only with their game, but with their growth that is really different from what an NBA analyst would have if they didn't watch them before they got to college. So I think from that perspective, it's a little unique. And so we're able to tell some stories that are different and able to give a level of analysis about the growth. Like if you only see AJ DeBonsa this year and he's here, you don't know if he was here or here last year. I mean, that is the reason why Darryn Peterson is number 1, because he was here, but the year before he was there. And so his path is just a lot more linear right now. So it's that kind of stuff that we get into. And like I said, I'm a basketball nerd. This is the stuff I like to do. And to be able to talk about it like with smart people like yourself is a lot of fun. And we hope other people enjoy it too.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, that I'm in the sports media space. I'm meeting people like yourself who I've watched in proximity or just seen stuff, and I've seen the name, et cetera, everywhere. So look, man, I want to say thank you for coming on this little old podcast I have. I appreciate you.
Anytime.
And even on your thing, man, whatever listen, if you need a guest or anything, listen, call me. I'm down. I love talking basketball draft, and I want to get that in-depth knowledge as well. So I'm going to be tuned in definitely to your show. So appreciate it, and man, have a good week.
All right, appreciate you. Good luck. Good luck on that medical report you're getting later today.
Thank you, man. Hey, as always, thanks for watching on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to check out TarHeel247.com for the latest wall-to-wall coverage of Carolina athletics. See you next time.